In 3 days, 42 million Americans lose their food stamps November 1st. That's 1 in 8 Americans gone. No food assistance, and experts are warning this could be the worst hunger crisis since the Great Depression. If the SNAP program shuts down, we will have the most mass hunger suffering we've had in America since the Great Depression. Joel Berg, CEO of Hunger Free America. The worst hunger crisis since the Great Depression in 3 days. And you know what the Trump administration did when asked if they were going to use that $6 billion emergency fund sitting right there to prevent this. They said no.
The USDA over the weekend issued a memo to states saying that they're not going to be able to continue funding SNAP programs across the states, blaming Senate Democrats. You can see the warning, the notice that they put on the USDA government site saying that point blank, there will be no benefits issued on November 1st. They said the well has run dry.
The well is run dry. That's what they're saying. The USDA, the Department of Agriculture, with $6 billion in emergency funds specifically designed for this exact situation, says they can't help. It's a lie. They won't help. There's a difference. And reporters asked Trump directly, will you fund food stamps next month? He said, yeah, everybody's going to be in good shape. Yep. That's it. No details, no plans, just vibes. Meanwhile, his own agency is sending letters to states saying, we got nothing for you. So let's be very clear about what's happening here. In 3 days, America's food banks are going to be more overrun than they already are.
Christopher Tan, CEO of Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore, says he saw the impact firsthand at the Federal Worker Food Distribution event 2 weeks ago.
We had about 800 cars online before it even started. It was an overwhelming amount of people that were in need, for sure.
So did you hear that? 800 cars before the food bank even opened. And that's in Virginia, a state where the governor declared a state of emergency and is using state funds to cover what the federal government abandoned. 800 families waiting in line for food because Trump and his Republican enablers decided that feeding people isn't a priority. And here's the thing that makes me want to throw something at the wall. Trump doesn't care about these people. You think he's worried about someone waiting in an 800-car line? The guy who eats McDonald's off gold plates, he's never been to a food bank. He's never had to choose between medication and groceries. He's never gone a hungry day in his bloated life. These aren't people asking for lobster dinners. They're asking for staples, bread, milk, rice, eggs, the basics. And Trump, along with Mike Johnson and every Republican in Congress, looked at 42 million Americans and says, nah, we're good. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Well, maybe people just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. First of all, shut up. Second, even if you are one of these heartless trolls who thinks poor people deserve to suffer, this is going to affect you too. SNAP benefits drive local economies. $8 billion a month goes into grocery stores, supermarkets, farmers markets. That's money grocery store employees depend on. That's money farmers depend on. Over 250,000 food retailers count on that income. So when you tank SNAP, you're not just hurting poor people, you're hurting Main Street. You're hurting the entire food supply chain. And here's what Republicans don't want you to think about. You know who gets SNAP benefits? Kids. 16 million kids. Also 8 million seniors, 4 million people with disabilities, and veterans. About 8% of veterans rely on those food stamps. So when Mike Johnson stands up at his podium and says Democrats are holding food stamps hostage, that's a lie. Republicans just passed the biggest SNAP cut in American history, $186 billion over the next decade. That was in Trump's one big beautiful bill earlier this year. Johnson literally said, we're not cutting SNAP, we're just addressing fraud and waste. But the Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan, said 3.2 million people would lose all their benefits because of the work requirements in that bill. Another analysis said up to 22 million families would lose some or all benefits. So they cut the program massively, and now they're refusing to use the emergency funds during a shutdown they created. It's not incompetence, it's cruelty, it's their policy. And if you want to know what makes this really insane, Republicans are the same people telling Americans to have more kids. J.D. Vance lectures people about birth rates. We need more babies, have more kids. But Then they cut food assistance for children. They cut WIC, the program for pregnant women and infants. They cut school lunch programs. They're literally saying have more children while simultaneously making it impossible to feed the children that already exist, which is a core of the Republican Party. We only care that you have them. We don't care about them once they're born. They tell women they have to give birth, then provide zero support for those children. Let me connect these dots because apparently nobody in the media wants to. This is all part of the same system. Cut food stamps, cut Medicaid, cut school lunches, cut prenatal care, then tell women they have to give birth, then provide zero support for those children, then blame parents for not being able to afford to raise them, then use that as a justification to cut more programs. That's not hypocritical. It's their plan. Keep people desperate, keep people hungry, keep people one paycheck away from disaster. That way, they can't organize, they can't protest, they can't demand better. They're too busy trying to survive. And speaking of protests, remember when 7 million people showed up across the country just to tell Trump he's a wannabe dictator? Republicans looked at that and thought, how do we make sure these people are too exhausted to do that again? Well, here's how. Make them worry about feeding their kids. Make them wait in 800-car lines. Make them choose between heat and food. Make them desperate. Because here's what they know and don't want you to know. Hungry people are easier to control. Desperate people don't have time for democracy. When you're trying to figure out how to feed your family, you're not organizing. You're not showing up to town halls. You're surviving. And let me be clear about something else. The money exists. $6 billion in SNAP contingency funds just sitting there, specifically appropriated by Congress for emergencies. But Trump's USDA says, nope, can't use it. You know what they did find money for? They found $300 million for WIC for pulling it from child nutrition programs. They found money to pay troops by raiding research funds. They found $20 billion to bail out Argentina. $20 billion to Argentina, a country that has taken so much aid and never, ever succeeds. But somehow there's no money for food stamps. They chose this. They found money for everything else, but when it comes to feeding hungry Americans, suddenly they're broke. And Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, his district in Louisiana has one of the highest rates of SNAP participation in the country. 20% of his constituents get food stamps, and he's out there calling SNAP our nation's most broken and bloated welfare program and voting to gut it. His own people, and he's starving them to make a political point. So here's where we are. November 1st, 3 days from now, 42 million Americans lose food assistance. Kids go hungry. Seniors skip meals. Veterans who serve this country won't be able to afford groceries. Food banks that already have 800-car lines get slammed beyond capacity. And we're heading toward the worst hunger crisis since the Great Depression. And all of this is preventable. All of this is a choice. This is what authoritarianism looks like. It's not always tanks in the streets. Sometimes just letting people go hungry. Sometimes it's just making survival so difficult that people don't have energy left to fight back. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking this is complicated. It's not. There's money, there's food, there are people who need it, and Republicans said no because they think cruelty is the policy. So if you're watching this and know someone on SNAP, check on them. If you can donate to food banks, do it because they're already overwhelmed. And if you're pissed off about this, stay pissed off about this because they're counting on you to get tired and give up. Don't. Resist the dummies, expose the lies, and for the love of everything, vote these ghouls out.